Hey there, community bankers. Welcome back to the Correspondent podcast from Independent Correspondent Bankers Bank. I'm your host, Madison Kaplinger, Marketing Specialist for ICBB. Whether you're a brand new banker or a seasoned leader, you probably have great ideas for improving your bank and someone you need to present them to. But how do you get them to listen? Today's guest, Alyson Van Hooser, is President and CEO of Van Hooser Leadership and a highly sought after speaker whose flagship presentation, Earning the Right to Be Heard, answers that very question. Alyson is not only extremely knowledgeable, but full of energy and just a ball of fun. You'll walk away from listening to her feeling ready to take on the world. Please welcome Alyson to the podcast. Hey there, community bankers. I am here with Alyson Van Hooser of Van Hooser Leadership. How are you doing today, Alyson?
I'm fantastic. Excited to be with you today, Madison.
Awesome. I'm glad you're excited. I'm excited too. I got the privilege of hearing you speak at the KBA Women in Banking event recently, and I thought you had a lot of good things to say that our audience needs to hear. So, for those who don't know you, tell us about yourself and about your career.
Sure. So I got my start in banking. So I'm very passionate about banks, even more specifically community banks. Those are very focused on making a positive difference in the communities of the locations that they serve. Now, what I do, what I've dedicated my life to for the past 7 years, in the next 40, we'll see how long it goes. I have dedicated my life to developing people. I would say developing leaders, helping them be wildly successful in a world that can often be challenging. So do a lot of work throughout the financial industry, both with banks, insurance companies, but we also work with everyone from coal mines to energy companies, ultimately helping develop bench strength across the team when it comes to those leadership skills that are needed. Also, helping the executive team, we help bridge any gaps that are there on the team to help them lead forward stronger. And then we're doing a lot of work around succession planning right now. How do we um, hand off that transition in a way that is going to be good for all parties involved? I think that the thing that makes us unique, Madison, and I don't know that you've had a chance to meet our team yet, but I do work with my father-in-law, Philip Van Hooser, who's been doing this work for almost 4 decades, which means not I'm not just sitting here pontificating about what a leader should do, but rather we've got lots of time tested, proven content, knowledge, experience on our team to bring to the workforce today.
That's awesome and, so needed, especially in the community banking space. I think, we're seeing a lot of retirements of people who have been in for decades and decades, and we need, people to be trained to step up and fill some of those gaps. And I'm glad
Hmm.
you mentioned your father-in-law because he wrote a book called Earning the Right to Be Heard that
Yes.
you present on in your speaking engagements. So if
I
I were
do.
to ask you to give me an elevator pitch for that book, what
Earning
would
the
that
right to
be?
be Sure. Earning the right to be heard is a 5-step process for selling ideas to decision makers in business. I would not be here today, likely, if it had not been for learning Earn the Right to Be Heard, that process early in my career, because it helped me get attention and gain influence with people in the C suite, which opened my eyes to lots of different ways to make a difference in our bank.
Awesome. And you gave an awesome presentation on that process to the Women in Banking conference. And the book and your presentation, I would encourage anyone to go find that if they can, because it's just so helpful. And obviously, we're not going to be able to go through the whole thing. I don't want to give it away, but I do kind of want to hit some of the high points with you because we may have bankers listening that need to present an idea to their board or to their C-suite, and they want to do that in the best way possible. So let's say you're a banker and you have this great idea that you're so excited about to present to your supervisor or your board or whoever. How in your process do you start that conversation?
Sure. So, as you said, Madison, we're on a bit of a limited time frame. So, I'm going to try to give a bit of context of why someone would continue listening to this podcast right now. There's two ways to think about this. There's the person who is on the team who's brilliant and wants to share an idea about a new product, service, procedure, structure, etc., inside of their bank. And then There are those who realize that there's a lot of wisdom and brilliance on their team, and they want people to share their ideas. When I think about the financial industry today, just something to consider is that technology is driving how we do business, and it will continue to do that. Relationships, I think, are our competitive advantage, and technology is driving how people are doing their banking. And so, with that in mind, Generation Z, so those employees who are mid 20s and younger, they are the only generation in our workforce today that doesn't remember life without an iPhone, or at least very few of them do. We call them the BA generation or the AA generation. So there's the BA generation, the before Apple generation, and that's all of us who remember when we got our first phone or our first iPhone. Our brains are all wired in some similar ways for us to be able to think a certain way about technology. But this AA generation, and if typically I hear Gen Xers and Boomers, initially when they hear AA, they think Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the after Apple generation, who is the only people on our team uniquely equipped to think about technology differently than everybody else, which means they likely have brilliant ideas. But I see a lot of brilliant people never stepping up to speak to those in decision making roles, bring those ideas that need to be heard because they don't know how. Tell me what to say, how to say it, what information do I need? And this process is for those people. So whether you have the idea or you want people on your team to speak up, this process is for you. Now, with that being said, Madison, I probably gave far too much detail, but we have to have that context so that people know I need to stop what I'm doing, stop the car, pull over. It's time to take notes. Madison, this process, we can't dive into the details, but I want you to think that when you present an idea to decision makers in business, you have to be able to think like them. You have to speak their language. You have to know what information they need, etc. And so, yes, I'm not the originator of this process. Phil developed this and refined it over years, and clients have tested this out, and we've got it now just right. When I say now, it's been this way for about 10 years, and we continue to test it in the workforce. And I hear every day. Just last week, I taught this for a bank in Michigan. No, in Wisconsin. And they were, salivating, thinking, yes, this is exactly what we need. So, with that in mind, 5 questions that every decision maker is going to want answered if you have an idea. And we answer them in this order. Madison, you know the details. We can't go there today, but they answer them in this order. Question number 1, in a meeting with zero PowerPoint. I'll say that again in case someone was zoned out. No PowerPoint. No electronic communication. We're doing this old school paper. There's psychology behind that. Not a conversation for today. You're going to answer very first, how much does it cost? Very simply. If it's a $4 million idea, Madison, we're saying $4 million. If it's $10,000 idea, we're saying that. We are never padding the numbers. We are also never saying, I don't know how much this will cost. It doesn't matter how much it costs. We need it. We're not saying it doesn't cost very much. We're not doing that. We're being straight up with the data. How much does it cost? Second question we're going to answer in that order is, what are the benefits? We're going to address both the benefits and any known risks with that idea. Now, Madison, I said that there are 5 questions. Those 2 questions are typically the top 2 questions that a decision maker has when they want to know something. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think
And
that's
then,
going to be the thing they want to hear first, for sure.
and then after that, we have to think about what would get in the way of this idea moving forward. Because I bet decision makers in your company have a lot of great ideas, but they have some limitations, reasons why those ideas haven't been moved forward. The third question we're going to answer is, how much time will this take? What's the timeline here? When do we get to realize these benefits? How long can we spread out the cost, etc.? Fourth question is, how difficult will this be to implement? So when you're answering that question, you're providing an organizational chart, who's responsible for what and when and to whom. How we're going to make sure that everyone inside the bank and inside our community is aware of what is happening at the right time. And then we're going to create a communication strategy, internal and external. There are What I know is that I've had people say to me before that this is way above my pay grade. This is more information than I know or that I want to gather. And I'll use this phrase. Those who are going to be successful in the future will be those who don't say I need to be paid for every minute that I'm doing work. Those who It's not going to be those who are saying this is someone else's job to figure out. It's going to be those people who say I will do whatever it takes in order to get the attention, the influence, and make a difference that no one's going to be able to ignore. So yes, it's going to be a lot of work, but you're earning the right to be heard. And I'll go one step further. When you use this process, it is not to just get what you want, it is to earn influence with those decision makers. Make them pay attention and say, we need Madison to have a seat at the table. We need her opinion, her voice. We trust her, etc. That is what we're after ultimately with this process. The fifth and final question. I'm coming in hot and heavy, Madison. I'm going to turn it over to you for thoughts and questions. The fifth and final question. This is where you put the heat on the decision maker in an incredibly intentionally respectful way. You are going to ask the question or pose the thought. If I have a note taker listening to this, the fifth question is, what are the consequences of inaction? INACTION. Ultimately, you're answering the question, if you do nothing or tell me no, is basically what you're doing. We're going to put that into professional language, but that's the question that you're answering. So you will then discuss, you're going to have a printed copy of all these benefits that you listed. You're going to put that back in front of the decision maker and say, I need two things. Number one, I need you to know that regardless of your decision here today, I'm still on board, all in, moving this bank forward. So you're making sure that they know they're not going to, if they want to tell you no, that you're not going to leave and then become disengaged. So I need you to know I'm all in regardless of your decision here today. And then secondly, I'm giving you another copy of those benefits because I want to remind you that these are all of the benefits that will not be realized as a direct result of your decision here today, should you choose not to move forward. And then they're sitting there. If anybody's watching this video and they're just looking through this list of all these benefits, so the last thing that you leave them with is all the benefits that they would want. And then I would use the word shut up. All of my kids are in school as of today, so I can say that. Then you shut up. You don't say anything else in that meeting. You don't want them to think that you're trying to sell an idea based off of passion and emotion or fear or frustration, but rather you've been very logical, very thorough. You've done your homework, you've got the answers. You're someone who can be trusted to do the work and get it right. You be quiet, and it will move from there on scheduling follow up. So, Madison, earning the right to be heard is about earning influence and making sure that you don't let good ideas fall on deaf ears in an organization. It changed my career using that process early on. I'm hopeful that those listening to this today will get some nuggets to take back. Madison, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, that's so good. You just like preached a whole sermon basically for
Well,
us.
why bother now with that? Yes.
Yeah, that's such a good, like, airtight process. I feel like you have, presented for earning the influence, earning the right to be heard, presenting ideas. So now that you've kind of told us how to do it right,
Mhm.
what are some common mistakes that you see people making when they present their ideas?
Or I think probably the most common one is we brainstorm in real time with people. And if someone doesn't bite, like I have this idea I've been thinking about, and if someone doesn't bite, then we either get our feelings hurt or we let it go. And it's simply that we didn't give enough information. There wasn't enough data for someone to make a decision. So sharing an idea in a hallway, at lunch, or as a one-off in a meeting is never something I'm going to recommend. That would probably be the first mistake. The second mistake would probably be, um, the person who's hearing this idea not being open to a different way of doing things. Not making sure that we're not letting our own fear or our own ego get in the way of what's being said. Um, it is okay, and maybe there's something really beautiful about letting someone else outshine you at work. And when they do, let them have the seat. And that would be not a call for you to back off, but to level up. if someone else is bringing the best ideas, then it's time for you to step up your game as well. That'd probably be the two things I would say often stand in the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's good. So you mentioned, getting a lukewarm, kind of getting a lukewarm response from leadership if you just kind of pitch this idea without doing your homework and, without any follow up. But let's say, you present your idea, you answer the 5 questions and you've done your homework, but the response is kind of lukewarm at best. Is there a path forward there? Is there anything you can do to uh, get the leadership excited and on board with your mission? Or is that when you kind of know, like, this is not the path forward?
I think anytime you there's either frustration or not progress in the way that you want it at work, one of the best things you can do is to choose curiosity. Choose to figure out why. So, what I would say is if you work through this earning the right to be heard process, and it's very so when I throw out how much does it cost, Madison, when we were in our training session, there were about 10 bullet points under there that you had to cover in order to adequately answer that question. If you walk through this process step by step, go get the book on Amazon, it'll walk you through it. If you go through this step by step, you will impress decision makers with the level and quality of work that you have done, which means I think you will have earned a follow up conversation. So if the response is lukewarm, if you don't hear anything back, if you're choosing curiosity, what I would do if I presented this idea to you, Madison, and you kind of see it seemed lackluster and you didn't get back with me on it, I would probably either send you an email or call you. And here's what the conversation, how I would open up the conversation. Madison, it was about a month ago that I shared this idea with you. I haven't heard anything back from it, or I got the impression that it wasn't something you wanted to do. I'm really invested in the future of this bank and in my career here. I want to make a difference, but it's obvious that I'm missing something, that there's something I don't understand. And that's why we've ended up in this place. Could I take you to lunch? Could I come in early for a meeting? Could I stay late? What could I do in order to have a conversation with you so that I could learn more about what it is that I'm not seeing? Madison, if you got that message, how do you think you or another decision maker would respond to that?
Well, I mean, for myself, I think, like, okay, this person's not going away. Like, this
Mhm.
person won't be ignored. So, and, it's clear that this person is open minded and willing to learn and willing to adapt. So I think this is someone like that I can work with that might be worth listening to. They've, earned the right to be heard, in my opinion, with that approach.
I'll add something else to it. If there are C-suite executives listening to this or someone who's in a decision-making role listening to this, let me pause. If you're the person bringing the idea, your idea should be good for the decision maker, good for the bank, good for your customers, and then lastly, good for you if you're sharing it. I would not use this process to share an idea that's going to be good for you and nobody else. You have to have this enterprise wide focus as you're bringing forward an idea to seasoned decision makers. With that in mind, if someone in a C suite position, if someone is bringing you those ideas that are enterprise wide, that are innovative, that are creative, that ability to think strategically and selflessly, not selflessly, those are the skills that we need as leaders. And the more you can do to reinforce and say, this is important that you keep working this way, the world is desperate for great leaders, people who can think strategically, who are willing to move fast, who understand business. And so it becomes our job as leaders to reward and recognize what we want repeated. So yeah, the answer would be absolutely, hallelujah, amen. We've got somebody on the team. You better believe I'm having a follow up meeting with you to talk about what you missed because now I'm excited to teach you, to mentor you, to help you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's good to know because, if there's kind of an industry wide, I guess, tendency that I can point out, as bankers, I think we tend to be a little risk averse,
Mhm.
and sometimes, new ideas make us a little nervous in some organizations more than others. So I think, the follow-up to kind of overcome that inertia is an important part of the conversation as well. But let's say that, you've done all this work and you just get a straight up like, no, we're not doing this, case closed, have a good day.
Mhm.
Is there a path forward from there?
I think you have to figure out why and understand why. And if you still stand behind your idea after having all of the information that you can be privy to at your level in the organization, then I think you have to consider that there's something else going on. If this truly is good for the bank, the community, for um, that person and the team, maybe there's something else going on. So, is there a path forward? Likely, but I think it gets far more complex and nuanced from there, because there could be personal issues that come into it, personality differences. I'll go back to ego that comes into it. There could be a lot of fear wrapped into it. I'll build on what you just said. I mean, I see on paper that this works, but it just doesn't sit right in my gut, etc. There's also interpersonal dynamics. Like, maybe for the decision maker, this sounds great, but maybe there's one person on the board that is standing their ground that this is something we will never do here. So, um, I think the biggest thing is that if you want a long term career inside an organization with a group of people, it is important that when things don't go your way, that for my younger people listening to this, that you lock in. That is not a time to quit and leave, or worse, quit and stay, but that you go even harder, because I've yet to find someone who could look back 5, 7, 10 years and say that that wasn't a good decision, because likely what you'll hear, that if nothing else, they learned something and grew through the process.
That's good. That's good advice. So obviously we've only kind of scratched the surface of the whole
Yeah.
process of earning the right to be heard, but hopefully we've kind of whet people's appetites, both leadership and both leadership and those within the bank to learn more about this process. So where can our listeners find more content from you and more on the process of earning the right to be heard?
Sure. So more content from me and my business partner Phil, you can go to vanhooser.com. On there, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll be able to sign up for our newsletter. We send that out twice a month. He sends it once, I send it once. We give fresh content for today's challenges. So there's that. Feel free to share it with your whole team. It's free and we don't sell anything on it. The other thing I'll say is all of our books are available on Amazon. So if you just search our name, then you'll get a long list of all the books we have in the Van Hooser Leadership Library.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like those are great resources, and I'm going to go sign up for that newsletter right now. But Alyson, thank you so much for being on today and for sharing this process. I think it's really going to help both our bankers, our boards, our leadership. I think it's going to help everyone level up in presenting their ideas and earning the right to be heard.
I love it. Thanks for the opportunity to serve, Madison.
Thank you for listening to the Correspondent podcast. We hope that you've learned something valuable to take back to your community bank. If you're listening on Spotify, leave us a rating and review. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel for more updates. See you next time, community bankers.